I'd like to do today is to pick up the threads from where we were a week ago, last Monday, and to ask in this context that you add that assignment to your reading for this week, which says something about an additional assignment. This is it. We're going to be dealing next time, perhaps the time after, with realism in Britain and America in the early 20th century. And I'd like you to read about that either in Copleston, Volume 8, Chapter 17, you know, Copleston's History of Philosophy, or in the Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the article on realism. Okay. And once you've got that, then we'll come back to where we were on Monday. Namely this, that 19th century empiricism, represented in your readings and in my comments by the Frenchman Auguste Comte, the Britisher John Stuart Mill, and the German or the Austrian Ernst Mach. 19th century empiricism can be characterized in these three ways. First of all, the development of the hypothetico-deductive method in science. This is the way in which Enlightenment objectivity in empiricism begins to show itself. The problem with Enlightenment foundationalism was, of course, getting firm enough premises. Either Descartes' intuitive first principles, or empirical generalizations like John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, and others. Now, what happens in the thinking of the 19th century in these people is that the empirical generalization, while it cannot be inductively proven, is taken to be a hypothesis. And really, from an empirical standpoint, that's what it is. If we have a sample of only half of the class, then it's hypothetical that all the class has the same characteristics as that half we have a sample of. So you have a hypothesis then, an empirical generalization that functions as a hypothesis. Sometimes it's not even a hypothesis which has the degree of confirmation that would be available with empirical data. Sometimes it's simply a hypothesis that we have no direct confirmations of, you see, and is only confirmed indirectly by what we deduce from the hypothesis, you see. But the same pattern is there. Just as in the Enlightenment it was premise, deductive inferences to conclusion, the whole structure of foundationalism is initiated by Descartes, you see. And just as John Locke wanted to do that with what he called demonstrative knowledge, okay, from first principles, definitions, whatever, deducing. That sort of procedure, if you like, the mathematical method of deduction from premises, that carries over into science as the hypothetical deductive method. And you can see that, for instance, in John Stuart Mill, when he talks about the principle of induction that enables you to generalize in terms of the uniformity of nature. The uniformity of nature is the hypothesis, the greatest empirical generalization of all. And so you need that as a premise, the hypothetical deductive method. Now, that method is extended by Comte into what became sociology, by Mill into political science and ethics. Extended, that is to say, into the study of humankind, human behavior, human society, social change, such like. So you have then this extension of the methods of natural science into the social sciences, as we call them. And that gives rise to what in Auguste Comte is called the unity of science, and in the 20th century is known as the unity of science movement. Now, I was commenting just now about what Evans said on Troch. You see, Troch would be part of that unity of science movement. He wants history to be amenable to the methods of the natural sciences, including causal explanations. He wants the scientific empiricism of the natural sciences to operate in understanding of history. You see. So this unity of science movement, John Dewey was very influential in that in the 20th century. In fact, his book on the theory of valuation, in which he develops most articulately his instrumentalism, was in a series of monographs called the International Encyclopedia of the Unified Sciences. Get that? The International Encyclopedia of the Unified Sciences, a series of monographs. So that extension to the human sciences then produced Comte, Mill's utilitarianism, so on and so forth. Now, the further thing, however, is that any kind of empiricism begins to have difficulty with metaphysics, as we well know from our friend David Hume. And so it's not surprising that this 19th century empiricism develops a phenomenalist, not phenomenological, keep those two separate, develops a phenomenalist position. And that's obvious in Comte, where he has those three stages in the evolution of any science, the first stage being religious, the second stage metaphysical, the third being science. And so empirical science has outgrown the need for metaphysical speculation. And likewise in Mill, where matter is simply described, defined in phenomenalist terms as the further possibility of sensations. And mind is the permanent possibility of reflections. It's purely empirical definitions, phenomenalist definitions. Nothing about what mind is in itself, or matter is in itself. So there's some phenomenalist anti-metaphysical thing. And Mach, likewise, though he's a physicist, and therefore his emphasis is more on the first two of these. Now, this is what we were talking about last Monday. If you've not already done so, do read those selections from Gardner assigned for last week from Comte, Mill, and Mach. You'll find Comte and Mill pretty straightforward reading. Mach also. But Comte and Mill are the most important of the two. So do get acquainted with them. And I'm not going to spend further time on them, partly because there's only so much time, but partly as well because they're so readily intelligible. You've learned how to read for yourself by this time in the semester. We don't have to expound step by step anymore like may have been necessary. Is that these three characteristics of 19th century empiricism are true also of Bertrand Russell. And in what comes out of Bertrand Russell, namely the work of the early Wittgenstein and logical positivism, and certain types of analytic philosophy after logical positivism of Ayer. Okay. So you're going to be reading Ayer now as the source material. In reading Ayer, keep these three things in mind. That's the key to understanding what he's doing, the whole positivist movement. This is the subject matter for the seminar that's coming up in B Quad in the fall. What's it called? Recent analytic philosophy? Something of that sort, modern analytic philosophy. Yeah, starting with Russell. And then as you look at some of the people in our chapter in Stumpf, Carnap, Quine, the three biggies in the development of 20th century analytic philosophy. Well, in addition to Wittgenstein. Okay? So this is tremendously important stuff in shaping the positivist movement, in shaping the direction of philosophy of science until mid-century, the 50s, and in shaping the development of what has perhaps been the most influential philosophical movement in the West in the 20th century, scientific naturalism. Okay? A naturalistic philosophy oriented to the methodology and findings of natural science. Okay? These are the assumptions underlying it. Tremendously important. And if you want to understand that, you have to understand those 19th century guys, you have to understand Bertie Russell, and so forth. Incidentally, it may seem a jump from John Stuart Mill to Bertrand Russell, who died just, 20 years ago, maybe less than that, until you read, as you might someday, that John Stuart Mill was Russell's godfather. I'm not quite sure what godfather means for those of such little religious persuasion, but at least there was a formal relationship, if not a religious one in that sense. Okay. So their lives at least overlapped a wee bit, for that to be possible. Is, I think, of lasting importance for his logical atomism. That's the thing that Stumpf emphasizes, and rightly so. Now, he did a lot more besides. His initial interest was in mathematics and logic. He started out as a mathematician. Cooperated with Whitehead when they were both at Cambridge. Cooperated with Whitehead in writing Principia Mathematica, affectionately known as PM. That PM means three different things in Britain: afternoon, Prime Minister, and Principia Mathematica. Okay? Now, for Russell, the PM was really the launching of his major influence and career. In it, he and Whitehead showed that mathematics is essentially the same as logic, in that they are both formal logical systems. Now, what we mean by formal logical system is simply a deductive system, a system that has the form of a deductive system, okay? Like we're familiar with in Euclidean geometry, where from the initial axioms you deduce the theorems, and from the conclusions of various theorems you deduce further theorems, and so on and so forth. The idea is that mathematics, arithmetic, or as well as geometry, can all be formalized as deductive systems. And what they developed was symbolism, algebraic symbolism, for dealing with other subject matter in formal fashion. So that symbolic logic was, this wasn't the first attempt at symbolic logic, I think Leibniz may have been the first attempt, but this was the thing which really launched symbolic logic in English-speaking philosophy. He also wrote an introduction to mathematical philosophy, for those of you who are math majors and interested in math, the foundations of math. He wrote a work on that while he was in prison during World War I as a conscientious objector. That's what they did to COs back then. But his major works were in epistemology, beginning with a little popular work called Problems of Philosophy that was published in, I think it was 1910, on through works on our knowledge of the external world, works dealing with with mind, with matter, until in the 40s, the late 40s, I think it was 47, 48, his last systematic work in epistemology called Human Knowledge, Its Scope and Limits. And I'll refer to that and some aspects of that later on. But running through all of his work in epistemology is this ideal, developed in Principia Mathematica, of the formal system, the deductive system. And in a little essay of his called Logic as the Essence of Philosophy, he spells that out. Logic as the essence of philosophy. He spells it out as well in a longer essay entitled Logical Atomism, which has given this name to his method and to his philosophy. Now, what is logical atomism? Well, it's the thesis that all of our thought, beliefs, knowledge, all of our discourse on any subject whatsoever can and should be analysed into atomic propositions. Let's get some space for this. Can and should be organised into atomic propositions. Now, admittedly, atomic propositions are not the smallest parts of speech, because a proposition has a predicate, a subject, and a predicate. So in addition to atomic propositions, there are terms, but of course terms don't mean anything except as they are used in asserting something or denying something. And that is to say, in propositions. So you have terms, you have atomic propositions. Atomic propositions combine to form molecular propositions. No surprise there, you see. And an atomic proposition is simply the smallest unit of thought. Atomic propositions refer to atomic facts. Molecular propositions refer to molecular facts. What do terms refer to? Well, either particular... No, take it back. Terms refer either to general properties, blue, square, notice that these are general, universal if you like, blue, square, brown, to general properties, or they simply name individuals. Joe, Bill, those are terms, proper names. So either general properties, or serving as proper names, they name individuals. So then, the thing is that you analyse discourse into atomic propositions that correspond to atomic facts. and then organize those atomic propositions into a formal deductive system, showing how all of the atomic propositions constituting our knowledge can be deduced from certain premises. What premises? Empirical generalizations, including hypotheses of the utmost generality, the hypothetico-deductive method. So what it means then to provide a logical explanation of something you believe is to show how it may be deduced logically from certain generalizations, certain hypotheses, whatever the case may be. So that the foundationalist model of the deductive system is extended beyond natural science into ethics, discussions of whatever subject matter you like. The method of mathematics that was analyzed in the Principia Mathematica is now taken as a method of all scientific thought, of all logical understanding. Explanation is in terms of deduction from generalizations from premises, the hypothetico-deductive method. Now, reflect on that for a moment. What is an atomic fact? Well, we say atomic facts are the smallest constituents of reality. Yeah, this is an atomistic view of nature. As an atomistic view of nature, it's influenced by Ernst Mach. His theory of sensations, you remember, sensa. Theory of sensations as the atomic constituents of experience. So that scientific theories are simply economical ways of talking about these atomic data, atomic facts, sense data. Okay? What Russell seems to be saying is that relationships between atomic facts are not given in experience. That's an old story all the way back to Hume. Experience doesn't come connected, remember? It comes in atomistic, beep, 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 no relationships given. And consequently, Russell is assuming a pluralism, a metaphysical pluralism, assuming that all relationships are external causal relationships of a mechanistic sort. He is rejecting, in his very starting point, any monistic metaphysic like Hegel's, or any view there are intrinsic, organic relationships. He's working still with a mechanistic model rather than an organismic one. Get it? One of his first books was called Mysticism and Logic, in which, in arguing for his logical method, he repudiated the methodology of people like Bertrand and Bradley, rooted in Hegel. Bergson, you recall, talked of an intuition that we have of the whole scene, out of which a worldview arises. And Bradley speaks of an immediate awareness of being in its large scope, you see, which gives structure to the detailed work we do on particulars. Russell calls that mysticism, repudiates it completely, because he does not think that there are any internal relationships between the atomic facts. So you've no way of knowing that you're related to the whole in that way. And intuition has no basis, as it would have a basis if there were already an internal relationship. Intuition would simply be the consciousness that goes with it. And so, on the basis of a metaphysical pluralism, he comes up with his theory of logical atomism that tries to identify the atomic facts which are the basic constituents of reality. Their relationships, if there are relationships, are causal relationships. And immediately you've got another problem coming up, because causal relationships have been questioned by Hume and by Godfather John Stuart Mill. Should we call him the Godfather? That has connotations these days, doesn't it? By John Stuart Mill. Question. But it's interesting to notice that in Russell's works in epistemology, when he questions knowledge of causal relationships, he becomes a phenomenalist. Because if you don't know there are causal relationships, how do you know that the atomic data of experience have any external causes? And what they are? So all you have is the phenomena, the world for me. You see. When he, as he does at certain stages in his career, accepts causal relationships, he tends to be a realist, rather than a phenomenalist. A realist in the sense that there are real material objects and we know their properties. You see. He takes science realistically in those judgments. I should say that in his earliest work, he had an additional reason for being a realist as he was, namely, he accepted the notion that consciousness has intentionality, that it is a mental act that intends, points, means an object. You see. And inasmuch as intentionality, the mental act, gives to me an object, Russell started out as a realist. But he came to reject the mental act. And he came to reject knowledge of causal connections. Therefore,